Welcome to the Standpoint. How have you been? How are you keeping up? How are you taking good care of yourself? I hope you're staying safe. Yes? Then you know more. We have to make do with what we have and trust God to take care of us. Now, you see, all of us are focusing and, paying so much attention to COVID-19 and its effect on us. But there's something that we are losing sight on. If we are going to live with this, if we are going to learn to live with it, then there are things that we need to go back to. During this period, we've heard about cases. And this is not in isolation. It keeps reoccurring. Abuse children, victims of abuse. Be it sexual, be it emotional, be it psychological. Especially the young ones from poor backgrounds. And people have to come out to come and solicit for funds for them, to go and pay hospital bills, to go and pay for medical report, to seek some form of justice. You hear of cases that perpetrators have been let to go, scot-free because there's no money to see the case through. What can we do about this? Can we keep handling it case by case? Or we have to find a holistic approach to this? Will there ever be a time when no perpetrator will go scot-free? That no child will be denied justice, all because her family doesn't have money? Welcome to the Standpoint. Today we have serious discussion for you, something that should make all of us sit up, because we all have children in our families. They don't have to be your biological child or children, but we have children in our families. Let me say thank you to GTP for my cloth. My dress was made for me by Brie Redua, and of course, makeup product by Maybelline New York, and applied by Nax Beauty Studio. My hair I always fix at Exotic Trends. We take a break. When we come back, are we abusing our next generation? What kind of future do we hope to have as a country? We'll be back. Welcome back to the Standpoint. Yes, and you know more. No studio audience now, because we have to, practice all the safety precautions. And of course, we can do without bringing you very empowering programs. And today we are looking at abusing the next generation and how we can forge ahead as a nation by sustaining the advocacy to make sure something is done about it. And I have the right people, as always, the right people in the studio for you. Well, let me say thank you to GTP for sponsoring us. We are supported by Green Essentials, who provide us the hand sanitizers. It's easy to spray. I show you all the time. And of course, 70% alcohol base, and the liquid you can spray yourself or whatever it is to make sure that you are safe and you are really killing the virus. Thank you to House of Foods, Gogos Yogurt, Away Purified Mineral Water, and Royal Drinks by Casa Preco. Yep Cleaning Services, everything cleaning you need to call on Yep Cleaning Services. Thank you to Gogos Yogurt. And, of course, Dream Over, who power our website, www.thestandpoint.com.gh, and Kodam's Gift and Stationery. They are there. Everything gift, everything stationery. You go there and they'll get it for you. Now, in my studio, okay, so as always, I tell you, we practice social distancing. When you stay to our hands, they're 2 meters away. So that's why we are not wearing the mask, but you can see our sanitizers. Studio is sanitized every time before we come in. That's why we are not wearing the face mask. 2 people, and so we are well spaced. But seated right opposite me is the one and only, my sister, Miss Dinah Deco. Miss Dinah, if you were a teacher, they call her Miss Dinah. That's what they call you, Miss Dinah.
Miss Dinah.
Miss Dinah Deco, she's a gender and inclusion consultant. Welcome back to the Standpoint.
Thank you.
Have I seen you this year, 2020?
Oh, yes. We turned 50 this year, you remember?
So you and who?
You and I.
My friend, don't bring yourself.
You're a baby.
She's a baby. Well, and next to Dinah, I have Dr. she doesn't like it when I do it, but it's Dr. Angela Draminabuaje, Executive Director, the ARC Foundation. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Gifty.
And I'm still jealous in your hair, you know.
Oh, well.
I know you and Diane, you have natural hair, but I mean, I'll get there one day.
Oh, I
kept saying
can lend you my hair.
Oh, yeah, but I graduated.
Can I make smart joke?
It's good to see you.
Good to
it's
see
good
you,
to,
Gifty.
you know, to come together once again to tackle this issue of child abuse. I mean, Angela, what can we do?
Well,
Straight to the point, what can we do?
lots of things, but I think that even before we start, what can we do? You start doing something if you understand the magnitude of it.
Exactly.
And we know that child abuse is endemic in this country. In fact, just as I was coming in, I was reading from a platform I'm on. A father has cut his 10-year-old son's ear and fingers today. This is just close after we heard about the 3-year-old boy who has been beaten up with wire rods, okay? But that's just touching on the surface of this. I know we've discussed this from 1990-something, maybe even before that, all the way to now. So it's a huge problem in this country. We cannot run away from it. It falls within the wider issue of child protection, and that cuts across trafficking of children, children being used at quarries and mines, and all the bad things we do to children in this country. That's not to say that everybody is bad, every parent is bad, everybody is abusing a child. But the numbers of cases we see, all the way from physical abuse to sexual abuse to psychological, emotional abuse, to the other forms of abuses that we have, it's not something to be happy about at all.
Abuse in whatever form to whatever is bad. But then when you think about children being abused, I mean, it just kills me. Yeah. Children.
Yes.
The ones that we need to protect.
Yes.
We are abusing them. And sometimes by parents, those who gave birth to them.
But actually, the statistics is showing that children are the most vulnerable and the most at risk. They're the ones being abused across board. They are the easiest prey, I can put it that way. So sexual abuse, we're having a lot more cases of children being defiled. We're talking about trafficking, child labor, across board. Emotional abuse, as for that, is part of our routine for growing up. Yeah. You're told the worst things. Your parents can tell you the worst things about yourself, your siblings, friends. So children just happen to be at the receiving end of all forms of abuse, as you can categorize it. So that's why it's important for the state to step in. It's important for civil society to step in. It's important for the media to step in and approach it from a very concerted point. Who does what? How do we liaise our effort in addressing it? But no doubt it's worrying, it's heartbreaking, but children are the most vulnerable, are the most victims of all forms of abuse that you can take, be it in the home or on the field. So this conversation is really, really worth it.
Another thing is, we're a society that loves children.
It's a contradiction in terms.
That's the thing. You know, if you're a woman and you don't have a child, you are in trouble. If you have just one, like me, you are in trouble. If you have two, you are in trouble. If you have 5, they are all boys or all girls, you are in trouble. Yeah. So we just put pressure on couples, on women to have children. Yet these children come, and it's like we don't know what to do with them. They are burden to us.
Well, like I said, it's a contradiction in terms. There are people who love children. They give birth to them and they love them. Now, I give an example of, for example, a man who is poor, okay, but even if he gets 2 fingers of plantain, will make sure that he will wait till he gets home and share it with his wife and children. That's a poor man who may not be able to provide all the necessaries of life for the child, but they are taking responsibility for the child the best way they can, okay? So you can't say that person is abusing the children or is neglectful of the children because of the poverty status. So I know people, whether rich or poor, who love children and do the best for children. I know people who haven't even had children, who take care of other people's children and do that amazingly well. So there are several examples across. It's just that, you see, I like to put on my different hats as I go. Human beings,
which are many.
Yes, many hats. So I'm putting on my pastor's hat now.
Okay.
Human beings are broken. We live in a broken world. So even the best of us have issues, but that doesn't give us an excuse to do anything we like. And that's why the state regulates because without regulation, without order and so on, everything will break down. Now, because we must agree that people will do bad things, we all have a tendency, but for grace or for, regulation, we should be able to take all the necessary steps to prevent and then to protect from and then to provide for if it happens, okay, and ensure that people have the services that are needed. So we approach it from a place where I call it a 4Ps. If one of it is not there, it's not enough. The prevention part, which we are not doing good at in Ghana now, then the protection part, then providing the services, and then ensuring that perpetrators are held accountable through prosecution and other means. Anytime one P is out, the whole thing starts breaking apart. And in Ghana, quite a number of P's are out. So, for example, when it comes to the...
In fact, all the P's.
In fact, yes. Think about it. All the P's are almost... Yes. So when it comes to the provision part, for example, again, just reading about this story, now with a 3-year-old boy, because of the nature of the case and the fact that it was spilt on social media, there's quite some help coming in. People are saying, what's the police doing? So the police has to act. And that's Ghana for you. Usually when people are watching a case, it makes a difference. Okay, but for those who fall through the cracks because nobody is hearing them, nobody is following after the case, nobody is putting pressure on the DOFSU commander, there are many of these cases. And we don't have the services. Social welfare, we've talked about it umpteen times, that our Department of Social Welfare is itself like an orphan and vulnerable child. This is no disrespect to the institution. They are doing the best they can under the circumstances, but truly, sometimes you approach them for help and it's just like we don't even have money to do the next thing. And that's the truth of the matter. I'm not lying. We work with them directly.
That's why I called for this program, for us to have this program. Because we are handling it, what's the phrase for it? Is it
piecemeal?
Piecemeal.
We hear about one, then we jump on board. Everybody's talking about it, and then that's it. Maybe we hear about one that they will call Dinah, they will call Angela, or they will call Gifty, and Gifty will tell Dinah, or Gifty will go straight to Angela to talk about it, or the recent one, I think the person really following it is Felicity. They put it on social media, and then people, but there are so many who do not.
For everyone, there is 100. For
more,
everyone,
probably.
There probably is more than 100. And because nobody is following, those hundreds slide through, and they get no justice, they get no support. And what does that do? It builds a system of impunity where the perpetrators and abusers get away with it. They grow even tougher, and they keep repeating the cycle. And then we have a system that is sick. We have our children who are not protected. And once we are dealing with the one-on-one cases of abuse, we are also struggling with a system that also does not believe that children have rights. So then we're having cases of abuse by parents or by caregivers or by strangers. Then we're having a system that says it is okay to marry off our children at age 10. Then the community agree that it's okay for so-and-so to take a child at 12 years to go and get married to. Otherwise, if she's left to sit around, she'll get pregnant and disgrace the family. Or she's a good cow to be exchanged for economic survival of a family.
And the other one is when she gets impregnated, you force the man to marry her.
Marry her, and that is how you solve the problem. So again, what is the culture around rape and sexual abuse? So that you hear people also discussing that if the age for consent for sex is 16 and the age for consent of marriage is 18, then drop the age for marriage to 16 so that when people have sex, it's okay to be married. But the conversation is marriage equivalent to sex? Or is sexual intercourse the only reason for marriage? Or is that how marriage is defined? Such that if you're capable of having sex, it is a good time to get married. So we have a lot of issues in our understanding of how to take care of children, that it's all of it informs the reaction we are getting. It also informs our policy makers and implementers in the reactions they give and provisions they make for taking care of our children. So there are so many loopholes and gaps that we're struggling to even appreciate and then get off. So Angela said we need to understand the enormity of the problem before we take off. 1 out of every 3 child or person in Ghana is likely to be sexually abused. Woman, actually, 1 of 3 is likely to be. And we're starting from a child up to whatever age. So this is alarming. That's the enormity of it. That is the enormity of it.
So the thing has been established. There's a problem with our system. I mean, okay, our systems, institutions, you know, how we handle this issue. So I'll take a break. When we come back, maybe let's look at how we can get institutions to, I mean, not personally, but what needs to be done so that, I mean, we don't have to keep coming. It happens in other countries, but the thing is, their systems work, their institutions work. There is, I mean, justice. You're watching The Standpoint. Let me say thank you to our supporters, Green Essentials. They provide us with hand sanitizers, and of course they make other stuff, soap and creams and what have you with our, I mean, kuto, and then alatasemna, they call it the black soap. The black soap, and I don't know, black soap, yeah, face mud, they do all that, yes, your little cousin, she'll kill me. She's not little. She's not little. You know, my sister-in-law, you know, makes them, and she gives them to us and supports her. We are so grateful to, though I have to blackmail her to give it to us, but we are so grateful to her. So that's a Green Essentials. Thank you to GTP for my clothes. My dress was made for me by Brit Redua. And then, of course, makeup product Maybelline New York, applied by Nax Beauty Studio. We take a break. When we come back, what do we do? Are you as stressed, disturbed, frustrated by what is going on as we are? What can we do? We'll be back. Welcome back to The Standpoint. The Standpoint is sponsored by GTP. Please, we need sponsors. We need, I mean, support. The Standpoint will be 12 years in July. Can you believe it?
Oh, wow.
11 July will be 12 years. Can you believe it?
I'm growing.
When we started, you are growing harder.
Seriously, at serious speed.
Because you remember when we started, right? 12 years. Can you believe
goodness.
it? Consistently being on, you know, the screens and making sure we bring the feminine side of issues. We're so grateful to everybody who's here, but we need sponsorship. We need people to stand with us to keep the program going. Now, I want to go to Facebook. You know, people have comments and questions, and I want to read a few. As I said early on, one case comes and then many more are followed. But whilst I look for the questions, let me come to you, Angela. One thing that keeps also coming up whenever there's a case of child abuse and the case kind of falls off is money for medical report. Yes. They can't pay. In fact, the recent one when the young lady Felicity had to raise funds because they had to pay 300 cedis, which they paid for medical report. Another person wrote on my post that there's a case somewhere up north that the medical doctor is charging 800 Ghana cedis.
Yes.
Early on in the year, I think Nana and I raised another issue because a girl was defiled, and then they went to the hospital and they were demanding 300. We just got a 12-year-old girl. Their family actually live on LEAP. And LEAP gives them how much? Is it 80 cedis? Or, I mean, how is this? Where is this girl going to get the 300 cedis? And then this is one case we also heard of through that in that Ishojaman district, there was a case where a girl was retained to the perpetrator.
Yes.
Because they could not.
Oh, yes.
There's so many cases like this.
Yeah.
So many cases.
Oh, but there are so
yeah.
many cases. You know, we worked in this for
I
a long
know.
time. So what some of us were doing
medical
was
reporting.
trying to find money from other institutions and so on and to pay, which is let me say, a bad way. It's a good way, short term, but it's not sustainable. Okay, so yes, people will still keep paying, but is that the way to go? In fact, within the wider discussion of child abuse and child protection is the issue of the institutions. Now, if we take it so broadly, we won't finish discussing it right now, but let's focus on this seemingly little problem that we have allowed to grow horns all over the place. Okay? This is a simple matter. The police come into the picture when a case is reported. And what they do, like the police should do, is to give a form for hospital and for the doctor to give their medical opinion, examination and all of that. And we have enough practice material and manuals and so on to show how the doctors should do this. Okay. Now, usually the doctors would charge because they have a regulation that actually allows them to charge some money, which they'll tell you they use to go to court, should they be called to give evidence in court. But it has proved to be one of the biggest stumbling blocks to access to justice for children, especially, and for women who are, abused. One of the biggest. And to me, it's not rocket science. If the doctors say this is legal for us to charge, fine. But can't we put it under the NHIS?
But Angela, you have worked with, abused children for years. I know you've been part of a board that is supposed to set up a fund or whatever, but is the amount that the doctors say it's their right, but is it a legal right?
It is. There's a regulation that covers that particular money that they take. It's not only from children and women. Assault. It's for, assault victims, things like that. Okay. So the Domestic Violence Act sets up a domestic violence fund.
Okay.
Now, the Domestic Violence Fund has been launched already, about maybe 7 years ago. However, there has not been continuity in terms of its publicization and people being able to access where it is so they can put money in. And it's for specific things under the Domestic Violence Act, for training, for helping the survivors, for resettlement and reintegration issues and so on. Right. The act is clear what this fund is supposed to do.
Okay.
Now, note something. It is under the Domestic Violence Act. So it's not all of these cases that come within the domestic violence sphere.
Okay.
Exactly. So there's a technicality there.
Okay.
However, there's a policy document that sort of links the act to other forms of abuse that may happen to especially women and children, even if they are not acts of domestic violence. So, for example, if a teacher or, somebody in the wider society sexually abuses a child, technically that's not domestic violence.
Okay.
Under the Domestic Violence Act, for example, the police is supposed to accompany you to go to the hospital. And once they accompany you, that treatment and that medical examination is supposed to be free. Under the Domestic Violence Act. So, but let's say that because of the policy linkage and because we anticipated this will happen, we actually advocated for that policy linkage.
Okay.
So I would envisage that anybody who suffers some form of sexual and gender-based violence, being a woman and child especially, we are not discriminating, just so we understand the focus because of the numbers, should be able to access some way, somehow, that fund for some help. But it is not actually a fund for direct support, which is also another technical matter.
Right.
Also, this fund has not really been able to get the amount of money it needs right now, as I said, even though there's been advocacy about it, so that it's able to help people who are supposed to access it. Secondly, procedures for even accessing have not been really drawn out well, even though a few people have been able to get some money, including us, to help a victim. But that was done under special arrangements.
Right.
Okay, Dinah was in the ministry then, I remember. Okay, so there's a thing with the fund. But whatever it is, we also cannot use that fund, assuming it even had money, to support all the 300, 800, 500. No, it won't work. There's an easier way. If the doctors say, this is our money, fine. We have some doctors who helped us in the past. Right. Even not, some of them are still. Dr. Clayman is one. Yeah. Dr. Sechi Achimota Hospital, right. Dr. Gayek, okay. You know, Dr. Badu Kolebu, yes, and then Police Hospital. These are the institutions in Accra, and I'm talking about Accra, who have helped in the past by not taking anything. These are doctors like any doctors, and we love our doctors. Yeah. So I'm not here to rubbish them or anything. Right. But they did so deliberately because they understood the kind of work that we're doing and were part of the whole, you know, advocacy and all of that. So they would not charge for these medical reports when these victims showed up. Again, that's not sustainable because other doctors won't do it. Yeah. Exactly. Because they won't do it, and this is a regulation, but the regulation doesn't actually, it's an old regulation. I don't know whether it has been updated in the last few years, okay? It used to be in some strange, in the past, the kind of money that the Ghana CD, you know, then was CD and so on and so. Yes. So if it's legal, where do we find money or make an exemption for payments for vulnerable children and even women or vulnerable women? It can be done. We have the National Health Insurance Scheme running. This is a matter where the gender minister and the health minister sit down, take a decision, call in the NHIS people, put in a policy paper, share it with cabinet, let them approve of it, and hey presto, this thing will be solved. I mean, when people get hurt and they have done armed robbery and so on and so forth, when they go to the hospital, they don't face this. Okay? Yeah. So we should think about the injustice of the situation. Okay? Even if the doctors say this is our money and we need to take it.
Isn't that the irony of the whole thing?
Yes, and besides, some take 300, some take 500, some take 800. So what's the standardization in it? Exactly, there's no standardization. And secondly, even if it is yours to take, there's also another fund at the courts that you can actually apply for if you go and provide evidence at the courts. It's there. So that is also even another alternative that could be covered with this. Granted, can't we even negotiate with the doctors? Can't the policy makers negotiate with the doctors on this in the interim and then take the policy decision? That's it. And then that's it. Why do we have to sweat for years over a simple thing like this? That is a big access to justice for children and women in this country. Huge. And it is shameful.
Very shameful.
It is shameful, honestly, because it's not rocket science. This can be done yesterday.
Priorities.
Yesterday.
Priorities.
Yes.
Yet,
priorities.
You said it, priorities.
Priorities. But we just need to be wary. Like we're uncomfortable having armed robbers walk the streets. We should be uncomfortable having rapists, perpetrators of different forms walking the streets. Yes. And the first step is the medical form. Sometimes people go home for 2 months to be able to raise the fees. Yes. And when they come back, how much evidence will the doctor gather? So you still take the 200 cedis, 300 cedis, show up in court, and there's nothing. Because the child has healed, traces have gone off. So what is the point? This is injustice. This is worrying. It tears my heart. But it looks, sometimes you feel very helpless. But simple. Public hospitals, government says, use your IGF for these cases. After all, when you take the statistics, how many cases per year per each government hospital in the country? IGF can cater for this.
It's just... Let me take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with this because we are joking with this, you know, as a country. We're really joking with this, and we need to set up. This is an election year. We'll hear things. Anyway, we'll be back. Welcome back to The Standpoint. Again, I say thank you to our supporters and our sponsors as well. Let me go to Facebook and read the comments. I have Benjamin Premper said, I think it goes beyond child abuse because not only kids are affected, it is a general human rights abuse. I believe there is a need to make amendments to the Constitution because it looks like some people find their way out when they are guilty. And I actually went on to let him know that for this particular program, we are focusing on child abuse. Now we have Adelaide, Delali Kluche. Please, does any of them know what the law says regarding how to obtain a medical report for a victim of abuse? I think we've talked about that. I've been following some developments in the country and have come to realize that the cost involved in acquiring a medical report is a major barrier for families of most victims. Then we have Sally Baxin. As a bystander, when you witness an abuse, what steps do you take? Good question. So these are some of the issues or questions people are asking on Facebook. And let me come to you about one of the questions they asked about as a bystander if you witness it. I think that's one thing that we don't do well to as a society. Then do you fear some kind of... You stress them. And sometimes not so crap that we don't have time. We think we don't have time.
We don't have time, and
we don't have to follow up.
Truly frustrates you also.
Frustrates you, but then we should know that especially when it involves children, we all have a responsibility to report. You can report, and the matter can be taken up and investigated. And that's why you see elsewhere you hear people saying just call 911 and they'll go into somebody's home and they can investigate. We also have those systems. We will not be calling 911, but you may be going to the nearest police station and making a report that you either see something suspicious going on involving a child, or you have evidence that something unlawful is happening to a child or with a child, and then actions can be taken. But we've been grown in such a way that we don't speak up. We have a system that has created us into people who are just scared of expressing our opinion. And we have now a social media system where if you say things people don't like, they come after you in such a way that people who know you tell you to back off. This is scary, this is frightening. And so then increasingly we are beginning to, in as much as people think we're expressing ourselves some more on social media, we are still not able to stand up and address issues that will lead to substantive change around us, looking at it case by case as they occur. And it's having a lot of consequence on how we are responding generally and how the response systems are working. We explain that our response system, people say when they get out there to report, fill a form, go and come back, this is not here, come back here. They feel like they are being punished for wanting to help. So then they don't want to stand up.
If we don't understand the nature of why we have to protect children, then people will give all these, maybe they are not excuses, but they are excuses to another extent. Okay? That's our future. That girl, that boy who has faced that is our future. If we don't protect the next generation, what do we have to stand on? Okay, the reason why we'll be up in arms about certain policies and so on and so on, because we are looking at what is going to happen to our future. And the more people who get into this, the better, because it's citizens who change the governments. Okay, so we have to understand that unless you don't care about the future for Ghana, then you say, okay, let them do whatever they like with the children. Exactly.
Or you wait
but
for
the more you
else
also test the system and push it, the better it might come out to be. Okay, so for example, people who want to help, if you think it's too much work for you, there's a hotline now, 055 1900. It goes directly to DOFSU.
Okay.
So even if you say, I don't want to get involved in so many things, you know, what the police are doing, fine. Just call that number. Give a good description, as near as good as you can, to the one who will respond, and they will take it up from there. So this is a way to encourage people that there is some help. We can't be helpless. We can't throw our hands in the air and say, if I go to the police, this is what will happen, that is what is going to happen, so I won't do it. This is the hotline you can use. They can connect to other DOSU offices all across the country. They know what to do and where to find a service here or there and to help as much as we can. But we should also remember that we have a legal framework which we need to advocate that it works.
But I think generally, let's begin to change the approach we are using in bringing up our children and then teaching them assertiveness. So we can talk about response and justice. Can we also talk about prevention? Are we giving our children the space to be able to speak up? Are we even having conversations about their bodies and all of that so then they can identify sometimes we're not putting the responsibility on them for ever being abused,
right.
but it is okay to
can
empower
empower
them.
them.
So then they
they
can
can also
identify
stop.
and stop the abuse. It's very important. So all those conversations need to be held and thoroughly and very carefully. As parents, we need to be taught parenting, maybe.
Also for doctor, counselor, author,
Lawyer.
Hey, you're welcome.
leader, big sister, Angela.
For me, it's about society's prioritization. If we understand that the next generation is needed and the next generation is what is going to carry this country forward, then we should put in a lot more resources in being able to raise the next generation well.
Right.
And also to protect them from abuse. Let's use what we have. Assuming we're coordinating even what we have, as imperfect as it is, coordination doesn't need a lot of money.
Right.
So let our policy institutions really work at coordinating. The Ministry of Gender, it is not a service provision ministry. It is supposed to ensure policy cohesion and coordination of all the different institutions that it has to work with. So you can get some good reporting on the trends, okay, and be able to respond. Let them do that, and at least we'll be able to catch quite a number of people in this net and do the best we can with the institutions that we have.
Angela, how long have you been doing this?
Oh, 25 years maybe.
Do you get tired sometimes?
Let me use the word happily tired. The thing is that when you see the end result of somebody you've been able to support, it rejuvenates you. Yeah. But when you're working in the system, and I mean, I've worked with Dinah, so we know. Yes. So you hit a lot of frustrations as you get along. But we've had some good support from people who are...
I sit by and watch you because, for the two, you've mentored the two of us. And she's worked under you. I've worked with you all indirectly under you before, So we see you, and every time it looks like you try to take a backseat and we still pull you back because you've done too
service
much work.
provision there, you can't take a back.
Exactly. So we keep pulling you back, and then, but today.
And before you,
Okay.
she's talked about. You asked whether she gets tired, and Angela says happily tired. And I mean, she's talking about the results that come up with cases of abuse that she worked with. But I think probably happily tired too. So what she has invested in people.
Oh, yes.
She trained me to do all this work. I started with Angela right from the university.
Okay.
I started with Angela. She trained me, and I worked with Angela for 5 years.
Wow.
So my training in human rights, gender understanding, and all of that was with her. And I'm not alone. Yeah. If people are watching, there are many, many of us who went through the various kinds of formalized structured training and informal training and mentorship. You have to blush. So
the bottom line is decided to celebrate you. First of all, we have this for you from GTP.
That's beautiful.
And then
nice.
We have, I know how you love your bags and your, clutches. This is from M. Sims. Can I open?
Please. As long as you don't steal it.
I won't steal it. She wrapped it,
But this is so nice. I mean, this is a big surprise.
Yes.
Was that a conspiracy?
So this is
nice.
cute.
That's lovely.
This is from MC.
The right shoes.
See, you mean what you're wearing?
No, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, that's so nice.
From M. Sims. And then we have also this, from Green Essentials. This berry smells so nice, eh? I said that's
I'm surprised.
hand washing, and then there's the black soap. This cocoa shea, coconut and shea butter, and then hand sanitizer, and then they have the soap.
God should let me live long ago.
You will live
You are living long.
And then
there's so much story to tell.
Oh my!
As well.
Oh, that's so nice.
And then of course we have some drinks and water for you from our drinks. Just to say that we see you.
Oh, thank you.
Sis, we are working. We are also trying to do it, but we see what you're doing.
Thank you. Gifty.
and
Thank you very
how
much.
we don't allow you to take the back seat because
Maybe that.
we may be going out the giddy when we hit the rock we know that we can call on Angela.
You need some
Ntiasie straight, call her. And I don't know about
Thank
you.
you. Thank you both
ask
of you.
her.
I mean,
Call
I
her.
even pull her into my, my home issues,
Private
counseling,
issues.
private issues.
We live close actually.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's easy to just drive to her gate and
Who's
say,
that?
Mijina gate
Brano.
now.
So we
Well,
appreciate you.
that's so
Yeah, I
beautiful.
appreciate you.
I'm
Thank
very,
you so
very
much.
grateful.
Yeah.
Very grateful.
Dinah, you
Yes.
too for initially so we'll give you a drink,
One Fanta.
pack of drinks and water.
If you don't give me, we are going home together, so that will be sorted out. So you don't even have to
I'm
worry.
grateful. I'm
Yeah,
very grateful.
so I mean, I think every
That's
now
very
and
nice.
then somebody needs to
Thank
pull him
you.
and say that I
Thank
see
you
you,
very
I
much.
see you, I see you,
I'm
because
grateful.
You've done so much.
we are still going, and we are holding on to your helms. I know sometimes you say let us loose, we go and
I
do our things, but
know,
honey,
virtually.
You know, that's
Yeah.
one when she says, oh, who named you nine?
Oh, you know,
I'm grateful. I'm very grateful.
You're welcome.
It's
Thank
a
you,
really
Angela.
big surprise.
You are
Thank you.
amazing.
Yes.
You've made so
okay.
much mark.
Yes,
We are grateful.
We'll be back with a bit of me. We now live in a world where we are all trying to keep up appearances. Keeping a lot of things to ourselves. We don't want to let anybody know our business, and we don't want to appear as if we are prying into somebody's business. But then what happens to, being your brother's or your sister's keeper? Looking out for each other. We have become too selfish as a people. We have become too self-centered as a society. There are too many people suffering out there. We see the children. I mean, I grew up in a different era where everybody's child is the other person's child. I mean, anybody can discipline you. Well, it had its good and bad sides. But now, when it comes into the public, everybody will talk about it. The most painful part is when somebody tells you, oh, I actually knew, I noticed it, but I didn't want to say, I didn't want to do anything about it. We are abusing our next generation. We are destroying our next generation. Abuse is happening across young, old, women, men. But then, today I want to focus on abuse of the little ones. Our girls, especially. And yeah, maybe our boys as well. Let me extend to that. Because they are the ones we need to protect. They are the ones we need to focus on. All our toils and whatever it is. Basically, it's because of our children. But then, we've neglected them. Society is failing them. Parents are failing them. Governments are failing them. State is failing. Institutions are failing them. What do? This must be a wake-up call. There must be a wake-up call. Because today, maybe it's about somebody's child. Tomorrow, it may be about your child. And we are gradually getting into that situation where our children will blame us for not standing up for them. A time will come where our children will point fingers at us and ask us what we did about it. Why didn't we do anything about it? I pray to God we don't get there. I pray to God that we wake up now to know that the children are our future. The children are the ones that we need to focus on. Because when you and I are old, they are the ones we will go to. What kind of treatment would we get from them? You see, the mistake we make is that we think everybody must be like us. The things we survived, we think our children must be able to survive it. No, everybody's different. That is indeed if we have survived it anyway. Look at the kind of society we have. Look at the kind of leaders we have. How did we get here? How did we become who we are? We don't care. We are not truthful. This must be a wake-up call. This is the time. Let's rise and protect our own. We all have a voice. We all can do something about it. Let's start from our home. We are living with monsters who are abusing our children. Familiarity is killing us and destroying our young people. Well, I remain a woman with super crazy faith in God. But again, I say, God has given us wisdom. Let's apply it. Let's protect the young one. God gave us those children because he's trusting us to protect them, to provide for them, to make sure they are safe and sound, to make sure they grow up in a good, comfortable, safe environment so they can live their full potential. I hope you do your best and leave the rest to God. Together, let's fight this. Child abuse is wrong. It is wrong. In every sense, it is wrong. Thanks for watching. See you same time next week. Bye for now.